I moved to this quiet town a few weeks ago. I wanted peace. I thought a small, cozy house would help me focus on my graphic design work. The cul-de-sac was serene, but sometimes the silence felt heavy. I didn't know my neighbors well. I felt lonely. One night, I was burning the midnight oil, working on some designs. The clock showed 11 p.m. when I first heard the music. It was soft, like something from my childhood summer days. I wondered if a neighbor was hosting a small party. I went back to work and dismissed it. The next night, I woke up suddenly. My heart raced and a chill swept through the room. I looked at the clock. 3 a.m. The music was back, but it was closer this time. I shut my eyes, hoping it would disappear. I thought maybe I was dreaming. On the third night, the sound changed. I woke up again, but this time I heard laughter. It felt distant, echoing in the stillness. It didn't sound like kids. It was more like adults chatting. Nervous, I got out of bed and opened my window. Suddenly, everything went silent. It was odd, the way the laughter just stopped. I scanned the darkness, but didn't see anything. Maybe I was imagining things. Then came the fourth night. I got a knock on the door. It was gentle, cautious. My heart raced. I forced myself to check the peephole. No one was there. I opened the door just a crack. The night stretched endlessly before me. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a breeze. Still, unease crept into my thoughts. By the fifth night, the music swelled. It was stronger, filling my room with an eerie warmth. I shut my eyes tight, but it lingered. And then I thought I saw a figure outside, just a shadow, tall and still against the street light. I blinked and it vanished. I felt a wave of fear wash over me. What was going on here? That night, I noticed my neighbors again. I couldn't remember seeing them at all. The whole cul-de-sac felt empty and the quiet was suffocating. Were they hiding? I started to feel like an outsider in my own home. I began to feel something was very wrong. On the sixth night, the music stopped. An uncomfortable silence replaced it. Then I heard a voice. "Emily," it whispered from deep in the darkness. I whipped around, but no one was there. My blood ran cold. Why was this happening to me? That's when I realized I felt trapped. I kept waiting for the morning when everything would be normal again. But I was beginning to think I tapped into something I wasn't meant to. I still can't shake that fear, and I wonder if I should have moved here at all. The next day, I finally decided to confront my neighbors. I had to know if they were hearing what I was hearing. Maybe they could tell me I was overreacting. I took a deep breath and walked over to the house next door. It was a modest 2-story with faded blue siding. The curtains were drawn tightly, just like the other homes. I knocked lightly, but hard enough to be heard. After a few moments, I glanced around, feeling ridiculous.
There was no response. I knocked again. Finally, the door creaked open. An older woman stood there, her expression unreadable. She looked at me, then around the street. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice low. The music. At night. Do you hear it?" I stammered. Her eyes narrowed. "No, I don't hear anything." I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me. "Right. Sorry to bother you." I turned to leave, but she added, "People hear things like that sometimes. Just the wind, or your imagination." I forced a smile, but her words lingered. What was that supposed to mean? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. As I walked back home, I glanced at the other houses. They all seemed to watch me, cloaked in shadows and silence. That night I tried to work. I really did. But the unease seeped into my projects. The laughter and whispers played on a loop in my mind, drowning out my creativity. I finally closed my laptop and settled into bed, hoping for sleep to take me away. Then, around 2 a.m., I was jolted awake by a new sound. It was muffled, like someone was rustling around just outside my window. I sat up, peering into the darkness like someone, or something, was desperately trying to get in. I crept to the window, heart racing. Drawing back the curtain made me feel exposed, but I had to know what was out there. To my surprise, I found nothing. Just the streetlight illuminating the emptiness around my house. But then I saw it. A figure at the far end of the cul-de-sac. A silhouette, unmoving. I squinted, as if that would bring it into focus. Was it the same shadow I'd seen before? Before I could think twice, the streetlight flickered. The figure shifted slightly, and a chill swept through me. I stepped back, pulling the curtain shut. It had seen me, I was sure of it. What was it doing there? With my heart racing, I rushed to lock the front door, feeling panic ripple through my chest. I didn't have a clue what I was dealing with. Was it a ghost? A neighbor playing tricks? My mind scrambled for answers. Just then, I heard the music again. This time, it was louder and clearer, almost like a lullaby. Emily. I felt the chill wash over me again as the voice echoed through the room. My body went numb. I couldn't move. I realized this wasn't just my imagination anymore. I was being watched. Then everything went dark. I snapped awake, gasping for breath. My heart raced as confusion enveloped me. The music had stopped, but the silence felt heavy, clinging to the air like a thick fog. I reached for my phone, its glow illuminating the dark room. The time read 3:01 a.m. I sat up in bed, the unsettling feeling from earlier still wrapping around me. I wanted to ignore it, to bury myself in the blankets and close my eyes, but a nagging thought held me captive. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched.
Gingerly, I stepped out of bed, my bare feet sinking into the cool floor. The shadows danced around me as I made my way to the window. I pulled back the curtain again, peering into the dimly lit street. Nothing had changed. The figure was gone, but the chill still lingered. Just as I turned away, I heard it. A whisper. It was hardly a sound, more like a breath, but it was unmistakable. I froze, my instincts screaming at me to run. "Emily!" The voice called again, the same as before, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "Who are you?" I whispered, barely able to get the words out. I was talking to thin air, knowing full well how ridiculous I sounded, but the power of the unknown pushed me to speak out. Silence absorbed my words. I backed away from the window, heart pounding. Maybe the voice was just a figment of my exhaustion. But what about the footsteps, the figure I'd seen? I needed to clear my mind. I grabbed my laptop, hoping a distraction would ease my anxiety. Sitting on the couch with the screen lighting up the dark, I immersed myself in research about the neighborhood. That's when I stumbled upon an old community forum site. I scrolled through threads discussing strange happenings, odd noises, and ghost stories from people who'd lived here long before me. My breath caught as I found a post from several years ago. "Strange music at night," it said. "Whispers outside near the old oak tree." It gave a date that was just 3 weeks before I moved in. Though I felt a shiver run down my spine, I couldn't look away. I gripped the laptop tighter as I read more. "Be careful," one user replied. "Those who listen too closely sometimes never return." It sent a wave of dread through me. The implications were almost too much to bear. As I was about to throw the laptop aside, I heard the rustling again, but this time it was louder. I shot up from the couch, my pulse quickening. I moved cautiously toward the front door, the whispers intensifying. They were no longer soft, but demanding, echoing in my mind, commanding me to open it. I took a deep breath, unwilling to succumb to fear. I needed to know. My hand hovered over the doorknob, hesitating. Was I ready for whatever lay beyond? Before I could decide, the door swung open with a force that startled me, revealing the vast, moonlit night. I stepped back, heart racing, but then the whispers turned into distinct words. "Emily, let us in." That's when I saw them. Shadowy figures gathered at the bottom of my porch, their eyes glistening in the darkness. I stumbled backward, feeling the darkness swallow me whole, uncertainty turning into pure terror. I wanted to scream, but the sound got lodged in my throat. My instincts screamed to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. I backed away from the door, my heart racing faster than I thought possible. Something deep inside urged me to flee. I turned, ready to make a break for it, but the shadows outside seemed to pulse as I caught glimpses of familiar faces among them. "Emily!" one of them rasped, their voice like dry leaves crunching underfoot. I squinted, searching for a sign of safety. "We need you." I shook my head, panic surging through me. I had never seen these figures before, yet something about them felt eerily intimate, as if they knew me. "No, get away." The words came out stronger than I anticipated. But they didn't retreat. Instead, they advanced toward the porch, their forms becoming clearer in the moonlight. I could see more of their features now: pale skin, hollow cheeks, eyes that seemed to absorb the light. The urgency in their voices intensified. "Emily, please, you have to listen." Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through, rattling the shutters and stealing my breath. It felt like the night itself was alive, pressing down on me. I staggered back further into my home, desperately looking for something to shield me from whatever was happening. "Shut the door, Emily." My own voice rang against the darkness. But the figures halted, the pleading looks etched on their faces. I saw one reaching up as if trying to grasp something intangible. Their faces twisted in anguish. Each wretched expression sent a jolt of fear through me. I realized they weren't just shadows. They were souls caught in torment, desperate for a connection that transcended death. "Stop," I shouted, confusing myself with my own bravado. But the more I yelled, the closer they seemed to come, their figures gliding silently across the wooden porch. I turned and fled into my bedroom, slamming the door behind me, heart feeling like it might burst right out of my chest. I pressed my back against the door, trying to hold it closed, and waited for what felt like an eternity, straining to hear. The whispers became a cacophony just outside, a chorus of pleas that wormed into my mind. "Help us, please, you have to understand." Forcing myself to look around my room, I spotted the laptop on my bed. Grabbing it, I flipped it open, keying in the names of the missing persons from the community forum I had browsed earlier. Maybe there was a connection. Maybe there was something, anything, that could explain this nightmare. As the page loaded, I caught movement from the corner of my eye. My breath hitched as I spun toward my window. There, standing just beyond the glass, was a face. A woman, pale and sorrowful, her mouth moving in muted words. I squinted, trying to decipher any meaning. That's when I saw something glimmer in her grasp, a familiar locket I thought I'd lost years ago. A chill ran down my spine. The pleading grew louder, and I knew I had to act fast. My fingers trembled over the keyboard as I typed her name, urging the hunt for answers. Maybe the past held the key to why they were here. But as I hit search, the lights flickered ominously. The brightness dimmed, plunging me into near total darkness.
Then came a knock. A soft, haunting knock at my bedroom door. "Emily, let us in." Everything in me froze, caught between terror and compulsion. I could feel the shadows gathering, their whispers now blended into the echoes of my own heartbeat. There was no turning back. I clutched the laptop tighter, my fingers numb as I tried to steady my breath. The knock came again, more insistent this time. "Emily." The voice was low, almost melodic, yet it tripped with despair. I knew it wasn't real. It couldn't be. But that didn't stop my heart from pounding. Gulping down my fear, I fumbled with the mouse and attempted to focus on the screen. The search results poured in, a mix of names, faces, and newspaper clippings. I skimmed through them, trying to comprehend what I was seeing. One name stood out: Sarah Klein, a girl who had disappeared during a camping trip 2 summers ago. I remembered hearing rumors about her ghost haunting the woods, but now the stories felt much too real. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, and the glow from the screen dimmed further. I glanced back at the door, sensing something shift in the air. It felt oppressive, heavy with expectation. "Emily." The voice teetered on the edge of my awareness, begging and urgent. A surge of adrenaline shot through me. I needed to know what they wanted. With trembling hands, I typed in Sarah's name, desperate for any clue that could connect us. As the page loaded, I felt a cold breeze ripple through the room, raising goosebumps on my arms. I squinted against the dark, instincts kicking in again. I had to know if the figures were looking for something specific. Then, everything changed. The wind gusted harder, roaring against the walls of my home. I stumbled back, nearly knocking over my desk. My laptop screen flickered violently before it went out completely, plunging me into darkness. Panicked, I fumbled for my phone, but before I could reach for it, a loud crash echoed from the living room, followed by the unmistakable sound of furniture scraping across the floor. My blood ran cold. "What was that?" I whispered to myself. I took a deep breath, heart racing. The knocking at my door began anew, louder now, as if something wanted in. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I found myself frozen. What if they needed my help? What if I was the only one who could save them?
With a wave of determination, I approached the door slowly. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob, heart pounding in my ears. Just as I was about to turn it, the sound from the living room escalated into a cacophony. A voice broke through the chaos, sharp and jagged. "Emily, you have to find us." I could barely breathe. What did they mean, find us? And how was I supposed to know what to do? My heart raced as I mentally weighed my options. I was trapped in a nightmare that wouldn't let me go. Finally, I opened the door, ready to face whatever awaited me.
But all that met my eyes was the empty hallway, a thick silence hanging in the air. I glanced back to my room, the laptop still dark on the bed. Then I noticed it. A faint light was emerging from the living room. Drawn to it, I stepped cautiously into the corridor. With every step, the dim glow pulled me closer. What I found next blurred the lines between reality and something much darker, a revelation that would change everything. As I rounded the corner into the living room, my breath caught in my throat. The light that had drawn me in was coming from my old lamp, the one I hadn't plugged in for months. It flickered erratically, illuminating the chaos that surrounded it. Chairs were knocked over, and books had spilled from the shelves like they were fleeing a disaster. My heart raced again, sending adrenaline coursing through my veins. "What happened here?" I gasped, my voice wavering. I took a cautious step forward, my eyes scanning for any sign of life. Was someone really in the house? The front door had been locked tight when I got home. I glanced back toward the hallway, where the faint sound of weeping crept in from the shadows. The sound tugged at something deep inside me, urging me to investigate further. "Is someone there?" I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The weeping stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. My instinct screamed at me to leave, to run back into the safety of my bedroom, but I felt compelled to understand what was happening. I looked around the desolate room, then shifted my attention to the coffee table, where an old photograph lay face up. It was faded, but unmistakable. Sarah's face beamed back at me, the same girl from my search, just a flash of a memory against my mounting dread. Beneath the photograph was scrawled a message: "Help us." The urgency in the words sent a cold chill through my bones. Suddenly, a shadow flitted across the wall behind me. I spun around, but the room was still empty. My heart thudded louder, drowning out all other thoughts. What did they want from me? I was just Emily, nothing special, certainly not someone meant to deal with this. The laptop suddenly sprang back to life on my bed, casting an eerie blue light as the screen glowed brightly. A new window popped open, a video file titled, "Emily, Save Us." I felt a rush of nausea. How did it know my name? I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over a chair. My shoulder hit the wall behind me, and pain shot through me, but I couldn't focus. The light from the screen flickered, showing indistinct shapes, shadows shifting and twisting. I couldn't look away, compelled. Just when I thought it couldn't get any stranger, the room filled with a gust of wind, accompanied by whispers. "Find us. Help us." Overlapping voices wrapped around me like an invisible blanket, drawing me closer to the laptop. I felt dizzy, caught between disbelief and fear. Then, the photograph slipped from the table, landing face down. I barely noticed, my gaze fixated on the screen. My hand instinctively reached toward it, as if I were being summoned by an unseen force. As my fingers brushed against the surface, the screen blinked, showing what looked like a wooded area. A campfire, the silhouettes of teens. An oddly familiar scene. "Emily," the voice returned, softer but just as desperate. "You need to know." I stepped back, trying to process it all. That's when I saw it. A figure appeared in the corridor, just outside the living room, faint but unmistakably there. My heart dropped. I wasn't alone anymore. Something dark and heavy loomed ahead, its form shifting like smoke. I felt my breath catch again, fear paralyzing me as I tried to comprehend what was happening. I could either run away or confront the truth, but running felt so much easier. But then the voice called out again, more urgently this time. "Emily, please, help us." It pierced through my fear, etching a new sense of panic into my veins. As I stood frozen, determination slowly began to rise. I needed to find out what had happened. What did they want me to do? Before I could brace myself, the figure stepped closer, merging with the shadows. And then, out of the darkness, I finally saw her. The figure emerged slowly, taking shape in the dim light. My breathing quickened as the outline became clearer. It was Sarah, the girl from the photograph. But something was off. Her eyes looked vacant, almost hollow, and the smile that once graced her face was replaced by a look of sheer desperation. "Emily," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper yet echoing in my mind like a bell tolling in a silent room. "You have to listen." I took a hesitant step forward, confusion swirling in my mind. "What's happening? How are you here?" I stammered, each word heavy with dread. "I'm trapped." Her eyes darted toward the laptop, then back to me. "It's the woods. They keep us there. You have to find me, us, before it's too late." She extended her hand, beckoning me closer. I wanted to reach out, to feel the warmth of someone real, but fear rooted me in place. What was I stepping into? The whispers swelled again, rising around me like a wave. "Help us, help us." I glanced at the laptop, then back at Sarah. An unsettling realization dawned on me. She wasn't alone. There were others. Past shadows flickered in and out of my view, remnants of lost souls pleading for freedom. "Emily," Sarah called out, her voice more insistent now. "You have to go to the woods, the camp. I can show you the way." The camp, the word felt foreign on my tongue. I had seen it in my dreams, a place I had almost remembered from my childhood, but now it felt like a sinister trap. How do I even get there? Sarah tilted her head, eyes widening with urgency. "You have to trust me. My friends are counting on you. If they're not found, we can never escape." Panic gripped me. I didn't want to do this alone. I needed help.
I wanted to scream, to run, but the look on Sarah's face held me steady. It was so familiar, a reflection of my own fear. Deep down, I knew I had to find that camp. "Where do I start?" I asked, my voice trembling. "The video," she urged. "It knows." Before I could process her words, the brightness of the laptop surged, bathing the room in an otherworldly glow. The screen flickered once more and showed the camp in detail. Weeds creeping over abandoned structures. A faded sign hung askew, spelling out Camp Willow. "Wait!" I shouted, but the images spun faster, pulling me in. I felt a tug in my gut, compelled to pay attention. "Emily," Sarah's voice broke through the chaos, but it was laced with despair. "You must hurry. He will come for you." Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered and then went dark. Panic clawed up my throat. "Who?" I cried out into the void, but all that answered was silence. I stumbled back, trying to catch my breath. The shadows shifted, and I realized they were moving toward me, drawn by the darkness. I reached for my phone, desperate for light, but it slipped from my hands and clattered to the floor. With dread hitching my breath, I realized that this was only the beginning. Something was out there, and I could feel it lurking, waiting to drag me into whatever nightmare was unfolding. The unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway. I was not alone anymore. I held my breath, straining to listen. The footsteps grew louder, dragging on the wooden floor like a warning. A bead of sweat trickled down my forehead. My heart raced as one thought swirled in my mind. I had to get out. But the way to escape was behind me, back towards the door. I glanced at the laptop. The cold glow still flickered, beckoning as if it was part of the problem. I had to do something. The footsteps paused just outside my bedroom door. Silence draped over me like a heavy blanket. My instincts screamed at me to hide, but where? I could barely make out my surroundings. I crouched, moving slowly towards the closet. I could hide there, but what if I couldn't make it in time? Just as I reached for the closet door, something banged against the wall. I froze. "Emily," a low voice called out. It wasn't Sarah. It was deeper, filled with a twisted familiarity that sent chills down my spine. "Who's there?" I called, my voice barely a whisper, shaky and weak. Silence. Then the voice returned, distorted and mocking. "You shouldn't have come here, Emily. You had no idea, did you?" I stumbled back from the door, my heart racing. I had to think. If this was about the camp, if it was all connected somehow, then maybe the video could help me.
With a deep breath, I turned and dashed toward the laptop. I flipped it open and the screen glowed brighter, illuminating my face. The camp appeared again, but this time the images shifted. Faces emerged, desperate and calling for help. Each glance sent goosebumps racing over my arms.
"Find us," they whispered in unison. "Find us before he does." Tearing my gaze away from the screen, I felt the dread coiling tighter in my stomach. I had to focus. What would Sarah do? I needed a plan. I dashed to the bedroom window, peeking out cautiously. The street below was empty, completely normal. Still, an instinct told me the danger was too close. Something wasn't right. I needed to gather myself before I faced whatever was lurking in the hallway. That's when I noticed a glimmer on my desk. My phone. It was still lit, a beacon in the darkness. I hurried back to grab it, but as my fingers brushed the edge, the phone vibrated violently in my hand. A new message appeared on the screen. "It's coming, Emily. Don't let it in." My blood ran cold. I shot a glance back at the door. The footsteps had started again, creeping closer with each beat of my heart. "Get out," my mind screamed, but my feet felt like stone. What if I opened the door? What would be waiting for me on the other side? Then I remembered the woods, the camp, and Sarah's warning about the being that hunted them. I needed to find a way to the camp if I was going to save anyone. The door creaked open slightly, and a shadow loomed at the entrance. I had only a moment to decide. I would either face my fear or be faced with something worse. With a deep breath, I whispered, "I'm not afraid of you." But my voice trembled. The shadow shifted, and all at once it lunged forward. I didn't have time to think. I turned toward the laptop, desperate to pull up the video again, to find out what I needed to do next. As I clicked the keys furiously, everything around me felt like it was closing in. Then I saw it, a clue hidden in plain sight. My heart stopped. The clue blinked on the screen, a faded timestamp in the corner of the video. 9:11 p.m. It couldn't be a coincidence. I remembered the time the first strange messages had started to come in. It was the same time I had received Sarah's last text before everything spiraled. Before I could process what it meant, the shadow at the doorway swelled larger. I stepped back, adrenaline flooding my limbs. "What do you want?" I called out, my voice firm despite my trembling hands. A raspy breath wafted through the doorway, thick with malice. "You should have listened," it hissed. I didn't have time to be paralyzed by fear any longer. The message about not letting it in echoed in my mind. I couldn't show weakness. I focused on the glowing screen and hit play. The video resumed, showing clips that made my blood run cold. Search parties, Sergeant looking grim, and a woman's panicked face calling someone named Jason. "Jason, you have to stop him," she pleaded, before the feed cut to static. "Stop who?" I shouted, glancing nervously toward the door. The sound of heavy breathing deepened. It didn't feel far enough away. "Get out," the figure urged, rage bubbling beneath its calm demeanor. I pressed the volume up, desperate for answers.
But as the footage flickered, I felt my stomach twist. It was shifting to another scene, one that looked eerily familiar. My heart raced. The woods. Sarah and I had played there as kids. They're all there. You need to help them. The woman's voice echoed like an urgent whisper from the screen. Help who? But the video cut out, replaced by a static screen. Something crashed against the wall, pulling my attention back to the shadow lurking just outside my door. I took a breath and picked up my phone, flipping through the texts. I needed a lead, anything to hold on to. The last message from Sarah glinted back at me, urging me to find the truth at the camp before it was too late. Then I noticed something shocking. A new message appeared. You need to go back. It's the only way. Was this a trap or a way out? I felt sick with indecision, but instinct kicked in. I grabbed my backpack without thinking and stuffed it with essentials: water, a flashlight, the laptop. If I was going to face whatever was out there, I had to prepare. The footsteps grew louder now, my resolve solidified. I couldn't wait any longer. I took one last look at the screen. Find us before he does.
With determination, I slipped my phone into my pocket and prepared for what lay beyond the door. My heart beat fiercely in my chest as I turned the doorknob, tension flooding my body. And then I swung the door open, but the hallway was eerily empty. Had I imagined the creature, or was it hiding, waiting for me to step boldly into the unknown? I stepped out, pulse racing, eyes darting left and right. That's when I saw it again in the shadow, the faintest glimpse of a familiar face glinting back at me. Someone was watching. "Emily," it breathed, voice dripping with malice. My breath hitched as realization dawned. I wasn't just running into the unknown. I was running straight towards something I thought I'd left behind, and I could feel it closing in. I stumbled down the hallway, the oppressive silence tight around me. Each creak of the floorboards seemed to echo the urgency clawing at my very being. I hesitated just long enough to peer back over my shoulder, half expecting the shadow to rush at me, to drag me into the darkness, but nothing emerged. Still, the air felt thick with malevolence. Heart racing, I forced myself to focus on the front door. It felt like a threshold to safety, yet I wasn't sure what was waiting for me outside. With a deep breath, I steeled myself. I pushed the door open and stepped into the cool night. The quiet of the cul-de-sac enveloped me, but I could hear faint whispers riding the breeze. "Emily," they beckoned softly. I shook my head, fighting the urge to retreat back inside. The glow from my phone lit up the darkness, and I turned toward the woods, the direction of the camp I had heard so much about. I had to find Camp Willow.
I didn't know how. I didn't even know if it would lead me to the answers I sought, but it was a risk I was willing to take. Something deep within me ignited a flicker of courage. I had to break free from this nightmare. As I made my way toward the trees, my footsteps quickened. I could feel their eyes on me, those lost souls from my visions, guiding me, compelling me. My veins pulsed with adrenaline as I pushed through the underbrush, moving deeper into the woods, where the trees loomed high and shadows hugged close. The deeper I went, the more disoriented I became. The path twisted and turned into a labyrinth of thought and memory. Then, through the thickets, I saw it, the camp. Silhouetted against the moonlight, old cabins stood like forgotten sentinels. A surge of recognition jolted through me as I stepped into the clearing. Indeed, it felt familiar. The place where Sarah and I had played as children, yet marred now by a haunting aura. I hesitated, grappling with the overwhelming mix of nostalgia and dread. Then came the whispers again, swirling around me, insistent. "Emily, help us." Drawing in a shaky breath, I closed my eyes and felt my resolve take shape. "Where?" I whispered into the void, knowing full well no one but myself could hear. "What do you want me to do?" In that moment, the ground trembled beneath my feet, as if the very earth was alive. I opened my eyes, startled. Suddenly, the memories flooded back. Sarah's voice laughing, the light of the campfire, a game of hide-and-seek. "Find us," I murmured, my heart pounding loudly. I moved toward the first cabin, feeling pulled by an unseen force. The door creaked as I nudged it open, and a rush of cold air swept past me, filled with murmurs shouting my name. "Emily!" they echoed all around. I could barely think through the chaos, finally stepping inside. Dust and decay filled my lungs as I scanned the dark corners of the cabin. Shadows curled in the corners, but I pressed on, ignoring the creeping fear clenching at my heart. There were remnants of chairs and tables, and something caught my eye, a faded photo pinned to the wall. It showed the camp, full of life. Kids laughing, running around a bonfire. And yet in that same picture, a familiar face smiled, and a gnawing ache settled in my gut as I recognized Sarah. Beaming as always, but beside her stood another figure, one I had forgotten. Jason, the boy she had talked about incessantly before she vanished. My breath got in my throat. What was the connection? Pushing the photo aside, I moved toward the door when the whispers erupted into screams. "Emily, help us." I stumbled back, fear knotting my stomach. Suddenly the temperature dropped. I felt an icy presence encircle me. I looked around, heart thumping wildly, the voices clamoring for attention. "Help us." Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped out. A tall, dark silhouette loomed, pulse-quickening darkness swirling around it. I recognized those hollow eyes. "Stop!"
"Ah!" I shouted, my voice echoing, shaking amidst the terror. I turned instinctively, ready to flee, but the shadow lunged forward, blocking my escape. "Why didn't you listen?" it rasped, voice chilling my blood. "Let them go!" I shouted, desperation pouring out. "What do you want?" It paused, as if considering my words, before extending a hand in my direction. "Find them. They will not escape until you know the truth." In that moment, the shadows condensed, swirling and shifting until the faces of countless souls emerged. Each one reached out silently, but their eyes burned with urgency. They were trapped, lost in the echoes of their own stories. But amid the looming darkness, Sarah's voice cut through the fog. "Emily, you can set us free." Time felt staggered as I processed her plea. To find the truth, I had to confront whatever held them captive, whatever this entity was. A surge of determination settled within. "I will help you. Just show me where to find Jason." And as if reacting to my words, a blinding light erupted before me, momentarily pushing back the dark. The shadow writhed, almost in pain, but then my phone buzzed violently. A message flashed on the screen. "Go to the campsite. The truth lies there." Before I could fully comprehend, I felt an overwhelming pull toward the campfire site, memories flooding back. I ran outside into the moonlit clearing, heart racing, chasing the voice that echoed through me. The campsite was just ahead when the ground groaned beneath me, shaking. I stumbled, falling to my knees, fear creeping in the corners of my mind. But then, just as I was about to give in to despair, I saw them, flickering shadows guided by familiar laughter. "This way!" I fought through the panic, moving toward the heart of the memories, where the echoes of laughter morphed into something darker. There, in the clearing where the bonfire had once been, stood Sarah, arms spread wide, face twisted in longing. Jim flashed through my memory, a desperate boy, Jason's best friend, who had never come back. I could sense them all, lost but not alone. "Emily, there's no time!" Sarah's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Her eyes begged for understanding. I took a step closer, reaching for her as I felt the pull of the shadows surrounding me, holding their breath. "What do I need to do?" "Trust," she whispered. A rush of realization coursed through me. I had to confront my past, my childhood. How had they become entwined in this darkness? I closed my eyes and thought of the campfire, the songs we sang, the way light once danced in our hearts. My voice steadied. "You are not forgotten. You deserve to be free." The light around me grew, shining brighter than the shadows. I felt clarity emerged, anchoring me. In that moment, everything shifted. The shadows writhed, but the voices transformed into something softer, a chorus of thanks instead of pleas. "Emily, run!" a voice cried, a warning echoing through me. But I stood firm, grounding myself.
Then I opened my eyes, my heart now an unwavering beacon. "You are all remembered," I declared, power filling my words. "I will find you." And the shadows began to recede, dispersing like morning mist under the sun. The air shimmered with possibility, filled with voices blending into one final plea. "Thank you." But just as the last light twinkled, darkness surged toward me. I grappled with fear, yet the flickering warmth of their gratitude enveloped me in a comforting embrace. A pulse of brightness surrounded me as I felt the shadows dissolve, but in that heartbeat of hope, the voice came again, echoing in my mind. "Remember, Emily, you must find the truth." And then, silence. I collapsed to the ground, breathless and overwhelmed. The camp was still, tranquil once again, trees rustling gently in the night breeze. Yet as I lay there, waiting for the deepness of sleep to claim me, a question lingered unanswered in my mind. Had I truly saved them? Or would the echoes of their desperation follow me forever? As the moon illuminated the campsite, I knew I would need to return. Their search was not over. The weight of the promise hung heavy. I could feel it in my bones, that lingering connection defined by loss and hope. The night faded, but one thing remained clear. My journey was just beginning.